beat somebody, we're practicing to beat everybody.
My expectation is we go out and dominate and create a nightmare and make people never want to play you again.
If you are a fan of another team and your coach is not out there doing everything that Kirby Smart is doing right now, you are already losing. You feel however you want to feel about that.
Nowhere to run and nowhere to hide for 4 quarters. They got to see us in our house for 4 quarters. They got to look us in the eye for 4. This is about us and our family and our house. This is about us. This is our mentality. We ain't backing down. We ain't running. Set a tone, send a message. This is our house. Physical toughness wins in football now. And if you in this room, you got it. And if you come in here, you better believe in it. Because this physical toughness, it's what makes the difference. Elite focus. That's all I'm doing to the guy across from me. I'm fixing to whip his ass. Not in my box, not today. It's about us. It's about our family. We attack. You take that helmet and you strike them. And you strike them and you strike them. That's how you get respect.
Physically, I want to break them.
You're either changing or you're choosing. That's what we're going to talk about tonight on this edition of the How About That Dogs Cast. In life and in everything that goes into life, there are different seasons. There are different seasons as you grow up. There are different seasons as you advance professionally. There are different seasons in every aspect of our lives. Now, you may be thinking, oh, he's going to talk about the off season. That's not what I'm talking about at all. What I'm talking about is a season of change. Because since the dog season ended, all I have given thought to is exactly how this team is going to be different the next time we see them. It's not just Georgia. It's all of college football. You might think that the change never stops. In some areas, I would say you're absolutely correct. I would say that that is normal now. Whether we're talking about transfers or new recruits or injuries during the season, players in and out of the lineup for whatever reason, is college football anything else other than change? Not really. Not today. And that's one of the things that got me to thinking about all this in the first place, because on a macro level, it seems like change is the definition of college football right now. And it makes me feel good because I've never been someone that rooted for above and beyond. I've never been someone that rooted for a player or a specific coach. I am rooting for my university, the University of Georgia, the university I've been a fan of my entire life, the university that launched my career and all of the opportunities that I've received since then. The university that fully embraced me as I was growing into becoming a man. The University of Georgia. And the football program has always been a huge part of that. So when I say I'm a Georgia fan, I'm a fan of the red and black. I'm a fan of the silver britches and the power G. It doesn't even matter who is under the hood, so to speak, because I'm there for the University of Georgia. So as we entered this new world of NIL and transfer portal and all that, I don't think it hit me as hard maybe as it hit some other people, because I've always been about the G, not about any of the superstar players that have been there. I love them all. They're great, and I thank them for what they contributed to my university. But I'm about the G. I'm about the power G. I'm about what it represents. I'm about the people who represent it. And I thank them all. So we're entering this season of change. The one above and beyond the macro level. When you look at it at a micro level, we're talking about changing from season 2024 to season 2025. And what is this team going to look like as we move forward? There are some basic treetop takeaways that I have from the 2024 season that I could stand up and argue with anybody. One of those is going to be just how resilient this 2024 team was. From the very beginning, much like in 2023, it felt like this was going to be a situation where injuries hopefully wouldn't be a big deal, but they were certainly going to be a part of the story. And as it turns out, they were a much bigger part of the story than we all wished they would have been. And then you have other things like the attrition that occurred, especially in the wide receiver position. Players who were suspended for this reason or that. The one thing that we know about this team, they proved it time and time again against the toughest schedule in the country among teams that were expected to contend for a national championship here in 2024. The one thing that they proved over and over and over was that they were in it for the fight, and they were in it for each other, and that they believed in the system and the program, the superstructure is what I usually call it, at the University of Georgia. And they were playing for the G and for each other. So resilience would be right at the top of the list of the things that I would point to here in 2024. But there were some other things. And the rest of these, may not sound so great, but it's what I took away from it. And that is that the offense, for a litany of reasons, it just never turned out to be what we hoped it would be. And you can point fingers. You can say it was about, well, Carson Beck didn't do his job. That's a point I would argue vociferously. I would tell you that Carson Beck was never the issue. Carson had a lot of things put on his shoulders. They expected him to do a lot with a little, and then stress, pressure, and then the other things that we talked about as far as attrition and injury and those sorts of things, not to mention the stress of the schedule, took their toll. And Carson did the best he could as long as he could. So no, I don't think Carson Beck shoulders all the blame here. But the offense was never what we thought it should be. And again, it comes back to the fact that last offseason, we sat right here and discussed all of the moves that Georgia had made in the transfer portal. And the year before, the same, all the moves that Georgia had made in the transfer portal, trying to address specific needs to make the program better, to make the team better. And then we get into the season, and whether it's injury or it's suspension or it's just outright indefinite suspensions where players were never going to play for Georgia again, positions like the wide receiver room went from being what we thought was going to be a serviceable unit, more than serviceable unit, a weapon for Carson Beck. It went more to be a unit that was going to be average and part of a greater system. That, of course, was assuming that the system was going to work the way we all expected it to. Now, what am I talking about there? I'm talking about the fact that Georgia returned 4 players along the offensive line, only replacing a new starter at center. And among those 4 that came back as starters, there were a total of 4 coming into the season that had been tabbed as preseason All-America. So we were looking at a unit in that offensive line that we thought was going to be very physical, was going to be great in pass pro, and was going to be the last thing that we were going to have to worry about. But as the year went on, we heard more and more, and especially near the end of the year, where it leaked out in pressers or off-camera talks, where Kirby was saying, y'all, we haven't had players in practice all week due to this injury or that, nagging things so we can keep them ready to play on Saturdays. When you do that, you can't gel that unit, regardless of how individually talented they may be. They're never going to reach their full potential because they can't work together. And then you had periods where those players were lost for substantive times, right? Like Tate Ratledge with his ankle injury. So the offensive line on the whole has to be viewed as an underperforming unit in 2024, a disappointment. Injuries showed up at running back too. That position went from one that everyone was all jazzed up, was going to break out and have a tremendous season behind this tremendous offensive line, right? Just never materialized. At first, it was because of suspension. Then it was because of injury. Then it was because of more injuries. And it was a rolling medic unit for the most part of the season. The only player that didn't miss a large amount of time with injuries was Cash Jones. But even Cash missed some time. That unit where we all hoped it was going to be so bright, fizzled in a big way, not because of anything they did necessarily on the field, just because of circumstances of the game of football. So you took a wide receiver unit that we thought was going to be above average to really good that became average. And we said, well, that's not a big deal because the O-line is going to be great. The running backs are going to be great. And then all of a sudden, both of those units get decimated. So now it's all on Carson Beck's shoulders to try to get it done in the pass game with a unit that is not only depleted, but is never quite as good as it was the year before or the year before that. So you can't put it on any one thing, but the offensive unit just never was what we thought it was going to be here in 2024. More than that, and the thing that might bother Georgia fans more than anything else is that the unit as a whole, and I'm talking about blocking on the perimeter, I'm talking about blocking among the offensive line, I'm talking about game plan and scheme. Georgia just did never look as physical in 2024 as we are as used to seeing them be. And part of that could be attributed to game plan because they had to become more of a passing team, and it's hard to get behind your pads and move people when what you're doing most of the game is throwing the ball. And for a large part of the year, that's who Georgia was. The offense was throwing the ball 60, 65% of the time for the best part of the season. So you can understand how they might have a hard time putting their feet in the ground and moving other humans when you're not getting lathered up and making it happen play after play after play, which they couldn't really do because of said injuries to the offensive line and the running back position. The other part of that, I would say, was an issue, was creativity in the offense. I am never going to sit here and tell you that play calling is the reason Georgia lost or bad coaching or any of that. Now, coaches can get out coached in any given week, but it's not like they don't have good coaches on the staff at Georgia. The thing that I saw this season was a lack of creativity where we did not take advantage, more often than not, of the advantages that Georgia had. Or if we did, it was like, oh, like a squirrel found a nut that week, and it looked really good that we used the tight ends. Or, man, that play call was really cool. I wish we could see more of that every week. That just didn't happen. And some of that, I'm sure, has to do with everything I've already been talking about. But above and beyond that, that should be the goal, not the exception. So I'm going to knock the coaching staff for a lack of creativity on the offensive side of the football this year. Defensively, I think the best thing we can say about them is that is a good unit, but not great. I think the defensive line was better than I expected it to be on the whole over the course of the season. They showed up time and again and proved that they can stop the run when they want to, but they certainly didn't do it consistently and not the way that we've known them to do it. I think inconsistency reared its ugly head at defensive back, linebacker, and outside linebacker more than the defensive line. And I don't know. I know we had coaching changes at those positions, so I don't know how much of that you can attribute directly to the coaching changes or how much is on the individual players. Because we saw a lot of really talented players that never seem to play up to their ability. And it makes you wonder why that is. Is it focus? Again, I think the coaches are quality coaches, and at some point, players have to take responsibility for their own actions. So it leaves me wondering exactly what happened there. But to say they were inconsistent, that's the best thing you can say about them as far as the defensive backs are concerned. Because even though they might be in perfect position, it seemed they never made the play on the ball, right? In the key moment when they had to. Linebacker as a whole was still young and inconsistent. Part of that was due to injury, with Smile missing some time. But that unit didn't perform to the level I thought they might. Right? I mean, in the back end, you had Malachi Starks, but how many times this year can you, and I'm not saying he didn't have a great season, but I was expecting more. So how many times this year did you see him make a play in a key moment when Georgia absolutely had to have it? The opportunities didn't really present themselves, and when they did, it didn't seem that Malachi made them. Same for the linebackers. C.J. Allen, great season. Raylan Wilson, great season. But I don't know that they lived up to what I had hoped for them. Inconsistent on the run fits. Inconsistencies in pass coverage. And then when you look at the outside linebackers, I would say that we had some players make more plays than maybe we thought they would. When you look at like a Chaz Chambliss and the statistical box scores, but then there were other players where we had hoped to get more that we didn't, where we expected Michael Williams to take over the game more often. That didn't happen. Jalen Walker did all he could. But we were looking for players like Damon Wilson to take over the game more often than he did, and it didn't happen. So is it scheme? Is it players? Is it the result of just playing better teams over the course of the year? I think it might be a combination of all those things, but the bottom line was the defense was inconsistent this year in 2024. But something else that I would take away from 2024 is the fact that I am proud of this football team. I am proud of what they accomplished. We talked about the creativity, right? Well, obviously you're thinking Mike Bobo there. But remember that Kirby Smart is the head coach of this unit. Bobo is a part of that coaching staff. Glenn Schumann is a part of that coaching staff if you turn it around. And on the whole, I am proud of this entire football team, and I'm proud of the work that the coaching staff did because they took all of these inconsistencies that we were talking about and worked and coached this team through to a championship level. Kirby Smart has said it time and time and time again that the way he judges his teams is, did we get the most out of this team that we possibly could? I think when you look at 2024, as much as it pains us as fans to think, yeah, we couldn't win the national title or we didn't win the bowl game in the playoff, but could they have? Given the injury situation and all those sorts of things, did Kirby and his staff get the most out of this team they possibly could? Maybe. I would probably lean more toward that than the fact that they failed because they didn't win the national championship. Because, friends, if you win a conference title, it's not a bad season. You did not have a bad year. You are a champion. And I sat in front of the camera and posted on my social media back in the summer that I didn't think Georgia was actually going to win the national title this year. And I went through why back then. And then I tried to follow this team through the year and piece together all the positive things they were doing and call a spade when it didn't look right. But in the back of my mind, I never actually thought they were going to be able to finish. And if they did, it would be an overwhelming accomplishment for this coaching staff and these players. This team, time and time again, proved their championship mettle. They proved that they had the heart of a champion. And that is why I'm proud of them. That is why when I think of the 2024 team, the first thing I'm going to think of is the fact that they were champions. Regardless of what it looked getting there, they were champions. And I've said it over and over and over that football is not Xbox. You have to deal with what you've got and you have to do the best you can. And this coaching staff and these players did enough to be able to call themselves Southeastern Conference champions in 2024. So yeah, I'm proud of this unit, and that's how I'm going to walk away from 2024. But of course, right after 2024, we're back into that season of change. Change is the one consistent. That means that the transfer portal was going to open up right after the SEC championship. And of course, there are people moving all over the nation. Of course, Georgia's going to lose players in the transfer portal. They do every year. I'm not sure what the total count is now. I think it's maybe 14 or 15 at the current moment that have gone into the portal. And that window's closed as far as departures are concerned for Georgia. So they're not going to lose anyone else in this window. But there are still plenty of players in the portal that Georgia might be able to go get if they wanted to. So there can be some additions at this point, but there will not be any more subtractions for the current roster until the spring window. But the one thing that's certain here is that change is going to be a part of it. New players are coming in, new recruits are coming in, the portal taketh and giveth. And we just have to sit back and watch it all happen. So you can't get too riled up about it in the moment. I think right now, Georgia has something like the 42nd ranked transfer portal class here in 2024. Make of that what you will. I really don't have an opinion of whether or not that's good or bad, because I think of the portal the way Kirby Smart thinks of the portal, and that is, did you lose anyone that you were counting on? And in Georgia's case, it looks like they may lose at least one player that they were really counting on. Did you go get the players that you needed to get to fill needs on your team to add into your program to make it better overall? I feel like Georgia's done a pretty good job of that so far, and I'm going to talk about that more here in just a minute. But before we do that, let's look at exactly where we are in the sway of things as Georgia starts to look ahead to 2025. When you look at this offense, and what we're doing here is looking at a projected starting lineup from our friends over at UGAsports.com. This is what they posted back in the summer. Now, for the most part, this is going to be accurate. There's going to be a couple of things here that may have switched up, but for the most part, this is what we're looking at. So when you look at this offensive unit that Georgia had in 2024, notice all the red. The first thing you should take away from this here is that not only is Carson Beck gone, which all of us would have expected, but you should also take a look here at the offensive line in particular and look at all of that red in that unit. Georgia is going to be replacing 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen going into 2025. You talk about an area of change that will get your attention. That is one that makes you stand up and look hard. Last year, Georgia had 4 of 5 returning. This year, 4 of 5 are leaving. And among the ones that are coming back or are on campus right now, only 3 of those players have any starting experience. So yeah, things are going to be interesting in the offensive line room moving forward. Now, here's the thing about the offensive line, and I'll touch on this again later, but one word that I would apply to this offensive line pretty quick for 2024 is that it looked like they regressed. Now, that may be like a strong statement to say they went backwards because of everything else I've already said, but man, that's what you have to take away from it, in my opinion. Regardless of why it happened, they did not perform to the level that we had hoped they would. So that has to be called a regression from the previous season. And when you look ahead to 2025 and you see that they are going to be inexperienced at virtually every position, that is an area of change that is going to get your attention. So the offensive line has absolutely been impacted here, but look at the wide receiver position as well. Not only do you lose Ben Urasic at tight end, who provided quality depth, and there are young tight ends in the wings, but that is somebody that grew to be a really good run blocker for Georgia this season and an efficient pass catcher when the ball came his way. He's gone. But then look at the wide receivers. Among those who were right here on the depth chart and among the top 3 strings, you're going to lose Dom Lovett, Arian Smith, Anthony Evans, and Michael Jackson. So when you look at what Georgia's going to have on the outside in 2025 and you wonder, how are they going to get better? Well, this might be an instance where Georgia's going to get better, but they are absolutely going to be younger. You are going to have potentially more explosive players lining up at wide receiver for Georgia in 2025, but they aren't really going to know what they're doing half the time. That's what spring's for. That's what the offseason workouts are for. That's what fall camp is for. That's what the coaching staff's job is to get them ready to go and put that talent out there and let them learn. And you might have to take your lumps, but that's just part of it. Now that's a look at the offense. If that wasn't enough to get your attention, check out the defensive depth chart heading into the year. The defensive line must be rebuilt in 2025. The Dogs are losing Michael Williams, Nazir Stackhouse, Warren Brinson, Chaz Chambliss, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, Jamal Jarrett, Sam Mpemba hit the portal, Damon Wilson hit the portal. Kristen Miller said he was coming back. That's huge for Georgia. Jordan Hall, we expect him to come back, hopefully healthy. Sophomore Gabe Harris is now thrown right up to the front of the line as far as who's going to get after the quarterback for Georgia. But you can see that there are a lot of bodies here that are going to have to play for Georgia that we don't all know their names yet. We followed them when they signed with Georgia's recruits, but we haven't seen them play meaningful minutes in games. They are going to have to learn trial by fire here in 2025 as Georgia rebuilds this defense. Then take a look at your linebackers. C.J. Allen's back, Raylan Wilson's back, but Troy Bowles, like I said, he's in the portal. Smile Munden's gone. Jalen Walker's gone. It is now Justin Williams' time. They're in the middle. So you've got three guys right there that are going to be playing for sure in 2025. Everybody else, along with Chris Cole, a name that emerged this season, they're going to have to grow up in a hurry and contribute in a way that maybe they didn't expect to. That unit, just like the defensive line unit, the defensive front, is going to have to be retooled, rebuilt, and unleashed for Georgia here in 2025. And then if you take a look on the back end, we should have Aguero coming back, Ja'Cory Thomas, Kyron Jones. But it's time for everybody to start getting used to some new names because players like Dan Jackson, Malachi Starks, gone. Julian Humphrey in the portal. We expect Daniel Harris to be back. Will he hold on to his job? We're going to find out. Because it's time for Kirby, me, you, and everybody else to turn our attention to 2025 fully. And if we're going to do that, we have to start by taking a look at the schedule. So let's walk through it real quick. Georgia opens the season August 30th against Marshall. At home. September 6th, at home. They're going to have another opponent. I believe that's Austin Peay. September 13th, on the road at Tennessee, which another year of building will give Josh Heupel his best Tennessee team yet heading into the season, talent-wise. They have an open date, and then they get Alabama. So in the first 4 games of the season, in the first month of the 2025 season, Georgia plays 2 teams in the conference that are going to be preseason contenders for the SEC championship. So those young players are going to have to grow up in a hurry. There's no time for dilly-dallying or messing around. You are going to have to show up and play. College football waits for no one. The game will not stop. Then we get into October. Kentucky comes into Athens. October 11th, Georgia goes on the road to Auburn, an Auburn team that believes that they're getting better. Ole Miss comes to Athens next year. That'll be a big game. We don't know what Ole Miss is going to look like exactly, but we know that Lane is going to be active in the portal again. Another open week. Then it's the cocktail party down in Jacksonville. That Florida team with DJ Lagway, an improving defense, and a head coach that isn't quite as hot as he was this year as far as his seat is concerned, we'll see. Against a young Georgia team that by this point will have hopefully grown up. But one thing's for sure, that will not be an easy game for the Dogs. Then they go on the road to play Mississippi State. And then we get yet another matchup as with Texas as the Longhorns come to Athens in November. They play Charlotte at home, and then we finish the season on the road at Georgia Tech. So is this slate quite as tough as the 2024? No, it's not. Largely because of the fact that some of these games are at home. But when you look at what Georgia's going to have to replace, this is going to be a monumental job for Kirby Smart and his coaching staff to get this team up to speed and ready for what is going to be a very challenging 2025 season. I mean, when you look at it at a glance, Tennessee, Alabama, Ole Miss for sure, potentially Florida, Texas, 5 of those games on the schedule are against teams that should be, at least in the preseason talk, as contenders inside the SEC. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy road. And as I mentioned, Carson Beck is gone, so Kirby Smart, they have to figure out who's going to play quarterback. You might think that's done, dusted, and settled because Gunnar Stockton went out there and threw for almost 250 yards against one of the best defenses in the country in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia made the mistakes and lost that game, but Gunnar represented himself pretty well. The team loves him. You got to think that going into spring, he's going to be the guy that's going to be QB1 based on what we know right now. So that's all fine and good, but he's still got to go prove it. He has to continue to get better. Will Mike Bobo still be the offensive coordinator for the Dogs as we head into spring practice? I don't know. There are a lot of people who are thinking that maybe Kirby doesn't have to outright get rid of Mike Bobo. Maybe he moves him back to, like in a, where they help with the offense, right? Maybe more of a Will Muschamp 2024 role for Mike Bobo in 2025. Maybe that's what you do, but you maybe go get somebody else. We don't know the answer to that question right now. So not only could the Dogs be replacing a brand new quarterback, say this cat, Ryan Puglisi, say he wins the job in spring. Say something happens and Gunnar gets hurt, and now Puglisi's the guy moving into the season. Not only are you going to have a brand new starting quarterback who's never gone through a regular season in the SEC, but you could potentially have a new offensive coordinator trying to install and adapt to his new personnel. So there are a lot of balls in the air in 2025, but rest assured that that's not all that's going on. I mean, the reason I didn't really get into it right here with the running backs is we think they're coming back. We got good news that Trevor Etienne looks like he is going to stay in Athens for another season. That's great, and for no other reason than because of the fact that they need healthy bodies. And right now, they don't have those because Branson Robinson injured, Roderick Robinson injured. You've got the younger backs like Chauncey Bowen and Dwight Phillips, but Etienne's the only one that has any real experience inside the conference. So it was a big deal that he came back. Now, personally, I think Etienne was one of Georgia's most explosive players this year. And if they had done a better job in the other areas of the game, that he could have had a much bigger year. But injury hit him too. So you can't have enough good backs inside the SEC. But I wanted to mention the quarterbacks because that's the player that touches the ball every snap. On every offensive play, that guy is going to have his hands on the football. So who's running the Georgia offense is of the utmost importance. And right now, we just don't know who that's going to be. But there are other players that you need to get ready to fully embrace if you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan. Yes, there's going to be a lot of turnover, but the one thing we know about Georgia is that they can recruit and that Kirby Smart is one of the best, if not the best, at roster management in college football. He knows the kind of player he wants. He knows the kind of player he needs to run in his system, and he's done a good job of going to get them. So get really, really comfortable with thinking about KJ Bolden as one of the leaders on that defense in 2025 because Malachi Starks is gone. You got Michael Williams moving on, Jalen Walker, the Butkus Award winner, on to the NFL. Who's the guy that's going to step up and lead that unit? You're probably looking at him right there, and he's going to have to really grow into it. But he's not going to be alone. He's going to be a pup leading pups because I really think this is the time that you're going to see Ellis Robinson make his appearance for the Georgia Bulldogs here in 2025. It was really interesting because during the bowl practices, Kirby had a little something to say about why Ellis hadn't played more. And he was like, well, the kid, he's got everything you need. It's not that he can't play. It's that he has to be better at how to communicate everything, how to get everybody lined up in the right spot. In fact, Kirby said the opposite. He said, Ellis is so good. And I know this sounds weird, what I'm about to say. Without saying it the way I am saying it, Kirby said, Ellis Robinson is so good physically that he wants to cover all three dudes in his zone because he thinks he can go make the play. And most of the time he can. But the thing is, in our defense, we have to be able to trust you to do your job and communicate to everybody else to do theirs. And about midway through the season, you saw Ellis start to pop onto the field a little bit. That was because he was making huge growth in his ability to communicate and know his role and play his job. Ellis Robinson, I don't think you can keep him off the field in 2025. And I think that's going to be apparent pretty early on, especially by the time we get to spring practice. Just my take, but I think that's what we're about to see. But he's not alone. There's another cat. Every time I saw Kirby Smart talking to Ellis Robinson this year on the sideline during the game, there was another dude glued to his hip. They were together like this. This guy right here, DeMello Jones, who is nothing but a straight dog, down south Georgia boy, playmaker, was standing right there with Ellis Robinson every time Kirby was coaching him up on the sideline. I think DeMello Jones is another cat that you're going to see make himself known in 2025. Could be in the special teams game because he's a hell of a player once the ball is in his hands, but he might just work his way onto the field in the star role or, one of those other positions where they rotate through and they start to move people, because KJ played a little bit in that star role too. You move him down, maybe, you have DeMello play a corner or something. Maybe Aguero moves back to safety. There's a bunch of things that can happen right there. But I just don't think that you're going to be able to keep DeMello Jones off the field in 2025. That's the way I see it. And then we look at guys who are going to have to play. Guys like Gabe Harris, highly recruited player as a pass rusher off the edge. Big body, very athletic, made some plays this year for Georgia. But he didn't have as many opportunities because he had better players in front of him. He was more of a role player. Well, now that Damon Wilson has decided to enter the portal, the Dogs have lost Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, Chaz Chambliss to graduation and or the NFL. This dude is the first dude that you're going to look at as somebody who can get after the passer for Georgia in 2025. Hopefully he's ready. Hopefully he's ready to step right up and take on that challenge, because that's what he's going to need. That's what we as Dog fans need him to do. Physically grow into it and turn it on. Because right now, like I said, they're going to have to build that entire front seven as far as the defense is concerned. So get ready to get comfortable talking about Gabe Harris, because he's going to have to play for Georgia. And there will be other new faces that I'm not going to talk about tonight, but this is a season of change for sure. Now, back to the wide receivers. Nitro Tuggle jumped into the transfer portal, or let it be known that he was considering going into the transfer portal. And then he cleared that up pretty much the next day, and he's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And then after Kirby Smart lost his father, we saw players like Nitro Tuggle, like Sokovie White, go to social media and profess their support for their head coach. This is a young man that has the talent to go anywhere he wanted to go. He has opted to stay at Georgia and appears to be fully bought in. And I told you what was going on at the wide receiver position on the offensive side of the football for Georgia. This is the kind of time where a player like Nitro Tuggle is going to have to play. We need him to be everything that he is supposed to be, everything that we believe he is. Smooth, sure-handed playmaker who's got that dog in him. That's what we need him to be, because the Dogs need those guys out on the outside that when they get the ball, the first thing they're thinking about doing is putting it in the end zone. Not running out of bounds, not just getting enough for the first down, not shying away from contact, but making a man miss and putting it in the end zone. We need a guy like a Ladd McConkey, like a Brock Bowers, because when you've got true dogs like James Cook, that's what they do. They seek out the goal line. Every play they're trying to score. That's what we need Nitro Tuggle to be. The jury is still out, literally, on Colby Young, but there's a chance that he could be coming back as well. So yeah, there are a lot of questions at wide receiver for Georgia right now, but there are also potential answers already on the roster. And Colby Young is one of those that we just don't know about right yet. But if he's back, he's an automatic difference maker. for the University of Georgia at wide receiver. Big body, great ball skills. A player that Georgia really, really needs if they're going to achieve all that they can in 25. A player like Colby Young has experience. So regardless of who you have playing quarterback, whether how young they are, Colby's the kind of guy that can help that quarterback be the best version of himself. We'll find out soon. He still has to go through the process of his litigation. All that's going to happen in the spring. Hopefully we'll know something in a couple months. I, for one, have my fingers crossed that Colby's going to be available for Georgia in 2025. Now, remember what I said about Kirby Smart being a roster management guru? And the portal was open, and I said, yeah, the portal taketh, but the portal also giveth. And Kirby's been after it this week. He went out and got the number 3 ranked wide receiver in the portal just a few days ago, Zachariah Branch from the University of Southern California, the Trojans. Now, in case you've been under a rock, let me tell you a little bit about Zach. He was the number 7 overall player in the 2023 recruiting class, a former Rivals 5-star. He went on to be a freshman All-American in his first year at Southern Cal on special teams. Punt returns, kick returns, he had a touchdown in both. He averaged 21 yards per kickoff return per punt return in 23 and 18 yards per kickoff return in 23. An automatic game changer. Electric. Explosive. Keep picking adjectives out that you think fit this young man. If Georgia needed something, it needed an injection of energy like what Zachariah Branch offers. Instantly, he makes Georgia more dangerous in the return game. And there is no excuse for Georgia to not be among the very best on special teams each and every year, given the amount of talent that they have on the roster. They should be explosive in the return game, not adequate, not field position, not complimentary. Special teams at Georgia should be game changers, lethal, dangerous. And Zach Branch offers that. Now, remember, I mentioned DeMelo Jones. He's another guy that you might put on the special teams. That might be the player that we're looking for there. Or the two of them back there together. Can you imagine? Zach Branch is an impact player for Georgia. And Kirby Smart knew that's what he needed, and he went and got him. Because not only is he effective as a pass receiver, he had, I believe it was 800 some odd yards in his first 2 years at Southern Cal. 3 receiving touchdowns. But he can also run the football. Jet sweeps. Circle motions. Pitch the ball to him, get him on the edge. Pop passes. Get the ball in his hands however you can and let this guy do work for you. That's Zachariah Branch, and now he's Georgia Bulldog. But Kirby wasn't done. That's not the only thing he was working on this week. Nope. He knows he needs more playmakers. So he went out and got Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, the number 1 wide receiver available in the portal this week. A true number 1 go-to guy on all 3 downs in your offense. Big-bodied, good hands. He scored 8 touchdowns for Texas A&M this season. Noah Thomas, Zachariah Branch, paired with Dylan Bell, Nitro Tuggle, Sokovie White, you can see that they're pulling it together on the offensive side to get weapons out there. Whoever's playing quarterback, they're going to have the ability to find a target down the field. If Georgia could ever get healthy at running back, you can see that there's true potential there. But that brings us right back to that offensive line and the fact that they're going to have to grow up in a hurry, and they're going to have to gel, and they're going to have to show us. Because right now, it's all up in the air. But the potential is there for this 25 unit. But one thing's for sure, the coaches have their work cut out for them. And don't forget, not only is Kirby doing work in the portal, not only are there already players on the roster from past recruiting classes that we expect to make a big impact, but remember, that when you look at who's coming in this class, you've got players like Mason Short along the offensive line, Juan Gaston along the offensive line, pass catchers like Ethan Barber in this class. And you might be thinking, well, Randy, these are freshmen. But the way college football works right now is that every year Georgia is turning over like 50% plus of their roster. So these young men are coming expecting to have to play early. It's the coach's job to get them ready to go. Same for Cortez Smith along the offensive line. Quality player, has to be in there, earning his reps, getting ready to go early. Then you have players like Elias Williams. He is sort of like Darnell Washington, not in that he is a 280-pound offensive tackle lining up at tight end, in that he is one of one. He's 6'7", 240 pounds at tight end. But the Dogs have already told him, we're not just going to play you at tight end. You might play in the slot. You might play out wide. He's a mismatch the minute he steps on the field. He's got great speed, and he is absolutely going to be a player that Georgia's going to look at using early in 2025. We will find out exactly how much as the season goes along. But don't think that he is not being targeted as somebody who can contribute immediately. But there are more freshmen out here that the Dogs are going to have to lean on. C.J. Wiley at wide receiver, 4-star. Already, you have to think, because of his skill set, is going to get every opportunity to contribute early and often in the 2025 campaign for the Dogs. Landon Rowland, simply because of his speed, could be a kid that gets on the field early for the Dogs at wide receiver or in the special teams game. You have Elijah Griffin. Defensive line could be the best player in the country that's not a quarterback as far as the ratings are concerned. And then you've got Isaiah Gibson. I was talking about pass rush earlier. Another guy that physically could get on the field as a freshman. He's going to have to learn what to do. It's going to be challenging, but he could be a guy that proves he's ready early. And then you've got the 5-star wide receiver, Taylon Taylor, who is also going to get a look out there. So in terms of roster management and knowing it's going to be difficult, but also doing the things necessary to make it happen, Kirby Smart is getting the job done as the Dogs look to 2025. There are huge questions, especially along that defensive front. But when you've got potentially the number one player in the country that's not a quarterback, and you have to make that because, again, the quarterback touches the ball on every play. But when you've got an every down player coming in as a true freshman who could be ready to contribute, a player like Elijah Griffin, you have to believe that the coaching staff knows that they need them to play and that they're going to do everything that they can to get them ready. And I keep going back to the coaching staff because the bottom line is, regardless of how great Kirby is in terms of roster management and building his roster, the impacts of what is happening in college football right now are the same for him as they are for everybody else. He has the same hurdles that every other team across the country has. Now, you might say, first world problems, right? I mean, he was in the college football playoff this year. Woe is Kirby and the Bulldogs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that just because your name is Kirby Smart and just because you wear the red and black and wear the Power G, you don't get to skip past the things that make college football challenging. And 2025 is going to be challenging for Georgia. The schedule is difficult, and they are going to be really, really young. But see, here's the thing. Kirby has to adjust. College football waits for no man. Certainly waits for no head coach. And the thing about college football right now is there are pressures everywhere. With more money comes more stress, more pressure, more responsibility. But Kirby knows that. The thing about his team specifically is that when you look at the offensive line and the wide receiver position, they regressed in 2024, regardless of why. Kirby knows that too. And the things he's doing right now to address it show you that he knows that. recruiting, NIL, portal, they all add stressors and challenges to every college football team. Georgia is not exempt, but Kirby will continue to recruit the very best high school players in the nation to try to build his roster out and develop a culture of we are better together than we are separate. That's not going to change. He knows the secret. The secret is the players, and he's going to continue to try to get the very best players possible. NIL, Georgia is not a school like, I don't know, Southern Cal, Texas, Oregon, right? Unlimited NIL funds. That's not how Georgia gets down. But they will be competitive. And Kirby has to continue to adjust to whatever it takes to get the job done. This is a zero-sum game for Georgia and Kirby Smart. He is a victim of his own success in that Georgia is expected to be in the discussion every year for the college football playoff now that it's expanded, and hopefully more. Kirby must fully embrace whatever his identity is going to be on offense moving forward. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the one thing you knew about Georgia football is they were going to punch you in the face. They were going to run the football when they wanted to. And they were, by good golly, not going to let you run the football. You knew it. And they had the players to make that happen. This past season, as I mentioned earlier, for most of the year, Georgia was a 60% plus passing offense that doesn't exactly scream physicality. Over the last couple of seasons, we've seen the defense give up incrementally more yardage in the run game. It doesn't mean that you can't still be a great defensive unit, but it is not what we have come to expect from Georgia and Kirby Smart. Fair or not, that's the truth. So Kirby, right now, more than at any other time during his tenure at Georgia, has to choose, and he has to make an adjustment and fully embrace whatever his identity is going to be, both as a football team as a whole and specifically on offense. He has to choose. The best thing here might be new blood at the offensive coordinator position. I don't know that, but I don't get paid to know that. Kirby knows that. He knows what he wants it to be. If he's going to run it, then really get into it. Let's be a running team. If you're going to throw it with all these new weapons that you went out there and got, then by golly, let Gunner or Ryan or whoever's taking snaps for Georgia in 2025 put the ball in the air. Embrace it. If you want to go get those top flight receivers, you have to show them why. You have to show them why they should come to Georgia. If you want to get that top tier running back, you have to show them that you're going to put a line in front of them that's going to road grade, move people, and get the job done on the ground. A good coach adjusts to the skills of his players. I know Kirby Smart is a good coach. I believe he's a great coach. I'm not telling him anything he doesn't know. But it is insanely interesting to think about what Georgia's going to look like as this thing moves forward into 2025. How is it going to look different? What are the changes going to be? We are all going to find out together whether or not Kirby's going to unleash his playmakers that he is out there trying to bring into the fold each and every day. Offensively, defensively. If you're going to go get these great players, scheme them up and turn them loose. That's what I'm saying heading into 2025. I loved the 2024 season because it is what football is. You never exactly knew the result. It was never boring. And I really am proud of how my team went out there and fought week after week on their way to becoming champions of the SEC. As I sit here following a loss that, well, nobody ever likes to lose, But coming off that loss and looking ahead to spring and fall and the 2025 season, I am very excited because, again, I'm going to get to see football the way I think football works. You have to make changes. You have to adjust. You have to coach. And then you have to try to get the best out of your players, and hopefully that's good enough to get you the championships. Hopefully that's good enough to take you where you want to be. But it's not a foregone conclusion, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it great. I'm looking forward to the 2025 season because I support my university. I support the red and black, the silver britches, and the Power G. And regardless, whoever puts on that helmet and runs out there later this year, I'm going to be right there behind them, cheering them on. And I have faith in Kirby Smart and the rest of his coaching staff to put those players in the best position possible to represent the university in a way that I can continue to be proud of them. It's Kirby's job to see around the corner. I just can't wait to see what he sees and where he leads us. I'll tell you where I'd love to go. And that is all the way up to 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. We've had some good growth here recently. We're up over 7,600. It's because of you, the people who are here now and the people who share these videos and tell a friend, that we can continue to grow. Because the more you show support for the channel, the more I can do for you. Without you, I can't do it. This is a symbiotic relationship, and I appreciate your support. So if you think we're doing a good job, please tell a friend, invite them over. We have a good time over here. Have them come sit in with us. We'll see if we can earn their subscription as well. And do me a favor. Even if you're not sure, you think you're subscribed, but you're not certain, double check. Costs you nothing, helps us out a ton. I'd appreciate you giving that an opportunity. Don't forget, this is the video version of the podcast, but it also lives in audio form. So you can head on over to wherever you get your podcasts, rate, review, tell a friend, put us in your back pocket, take us with you, listen to us on your commute to work. Whatever it is you want to do, we've got you covered. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. I hope you will. Rate and review. We could really use that. And it would let other people know that we're out here trying to do a good job. And as always, I want to take a second to say thank you to the supporters of the channel because, like I said, without you guys, I couldn't do this. It's because you choose to support this channel that other people choose to support me in ways above and beyond what we see here on YouTube. And that in turn allows me to produce more content for you. But if that didn't happen, I could not spend the time I spend doing this. And I want to say thank you to those who choose to support the channel with memberships. 2025 is going to be a year of change for the University of Georgia football team. Top to bottom, across the roster, it's not going to look the way it looked in 2024. And I am very, very excited to see what lies ahead. I am proud of everything that was accomplished in 2024. But as I said back in the summer, I had my doubts that the Dogs would be able to actually pull it off and win the national championship. Turns out I was right. That doesn't mean that it wasn't a great season. It was. It doesn't mean that I'm not proud of them. I am. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to support them heading into 2025 because when I look down the roster, it's going to be different. But that is what is exciting. Remember, if you are not changing, you are choosing the situation that you are in. Kirby Smart knows that. And he is doing everything within his power to get the Dogs ready to be all that we expect them to be heading into 2025. Will that be another national championship, another conference championship? Or will it be just a season of growth where we watch young men achieve their goals in support of the university that we all profess to love? Only time will tell. I know I'm going to have a front row seat for it either way, and I'm going to be right here with you to talk about it every step of the way as we head into 2025. Until next time, y'all take care of yourselves, your friends, your families. Take care of each other, and go Dogs! All right, we are right back in here for a little bit of overtime. I had somebody, I believe it was Jeremy off the top, asked me if we were going to do overtime tonight. Of course we are. We're always going to try to do a few minutes of overtime because that's where you guys can banter back and forth a little bit, let some stuff go, and we will, have an opportunity to talk about some things that maybe we discussed in the podcast. It feels weird being back. I got to tell you, it feels like we were gone forever. I'm happy to see everybody in the chat here. And I do have to take a second and acknowledge the folks who jumped in here earlier. You guys know how I do it in the live broadcast. It always looks a little bit different because it's a taping, right? So we tape the podcast for the audio version. But the one thing that I want to do is make sure that I go back in here and recognize the people who chose to bless us this evening with the super chats. So the first one we got that came in here was from our good buddies Herb and Raj over the Herb and Raj podcast. $5. Thank you for that, fellas. I appreciate it. He says, I'm ready to skip ahead to next year already. Now, we all know, you guys know, have been here at the channel for a minute. You know that our good buddies Herb and Raj, they follow and root for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Don't hold that against them. Good folks. They're good to me. We're friends off the air. And I always love the support that they offer to the channel. So thank you, fellas, for that. I really, really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm ready to skip ahead to 2025 too. On one hand, I'm anticipating it. I'm really looking forward to it. But on the other hand, everything that I just discussed here in the last hour, all of this drama, because that's what it is. You've got drama about players coming and going. You've got drama about who's going to be playing what position. You've got drama about whether or not the coaching staff is going to change, whether or not they're going to make moves that are going to really shake up the team, or whether it's just going to be stuff around the edges. There's all kinds of drama going on here. And oh, by the way, I know some of you don't follow it as closely, but you've still got everything going on about the 2026 recruiting cycle that's getting underway. We just wrapped up 2025 with an early signing day. I think there's one more official signing day that's here in the spring this week or so that's going to maybe put a cap on the 25 class. But for the most part, Georgia's done with 25 and they're moving on to 26. So that's a whole other area that we can spend time talking about things here in the aphelion of the college football season for the Georgia Bulldogs. So Herb and Raj, thank you guys for the super chat. Really, it means everything. And if you'll notice, they contributed toward the goal. I think I'm going to do this new thing where I set a goal. And if you guys really want to stick around and do overtime after the fact and have a little bit more freewheeling exchange, we set a goal. And if we meet that goal during the live, then we can stay on a little bit longer in terms of, overtime on the back end. Because at this point, you guys are doing me a huge favor sticking around with me, and I want to make sure that I'm giving back to you. And if we want to make that an extended period, then reaching these goals that I think I'm going to try to set moving forward, again, that's one way to help grow the channel and spread what it is we're doing. And I want to make a point here. I said it when I was behind the full screen, but I want to make sure that you caught it. It's because of things like the super chats and the subscriber numbers and all those sorts of things. When you might see me do ad mentions or whatever, get into partnerships with companies or something like that, just know that none of that is possible without your support. And the more that you support the channel, the more those people, those brands are out there going, hey, that's a channel that Georgia Bulldog fans care about. Then that allows me, if I can work a partnership with them, that allows me to then have more free time and more resources to put it back into channel for content for you. So I hope you understand that symbiotic responsibility or relationship there and how valuable you guys are to helping me do more for you. I just want to say thanks in case you didn't catch it the first time. So Herb and Raj, thank you for that. And they were not the only people who decided to bless us tonight with a super chat. Carol, channel moderator supreme, big member of the channel here, longtime supporter. She hits us up with the 5 spot. Thank you, Carol, so much. I really appreciate that. I don't see a comment associated with it. So if there was a specific message that you wanted to relay here, drop it in the chat and I will certainly convey it for you. But I want to say thank you, Carol, for supporting the channel, both as a moderator in the chat always supporting what we do here on YouTube, where everything starts for the podcast and the channel. And obviously with Super Chats, which is a direct donation to the channel. Thank you so very much, Carol. I really appreciate it. So let me scroll back here through this chat and just see. Looks like there's a lot of pro talk in here, which is unique and different. That's pretty cool. You guys were busy in the chat as always. I appreciate it. Let's see. Yep. Tim's in here. Appreciate you being in here. I know at one point we had almost 80 folks in here, which is cool considering we were getting right back on the horse after getting into the new year. I hope everyone is having a really good new year. I hope it's off to a raging start for you. And if you live here in Georgia or anywhere in the South, just know that I want you to be safe, right? Because we're expecting some winter weather coming in down here. So stay in, bundle up, stay warm, enjoy the snow. My girls are super excited because they've never actually seen real accumulating snow that they can remember. So we are looking forward to this week because we're expecting that we should have an opportunity to maybe see some accumulating wintry weather. And the girls are all kinds of amped up for that. They get a snow day from school and they're going to get to go out and have a good time in the precipitation. So I want to say, if you have an opportunity to go out and enjoy it, do so, but do so safely. And I hope you enjoy it, right? Even if you just decide to sit by the window and check it out as it rolls in, I hope that if you're here in Georgia or anywhere across the Southeast and you're going to be impacted by the weather, I certainly hope that it's an enjoyable experience and not something that's going to cause you stress. Man, lots of stuff going on. So since we decided to hang out here for overtime for just a couple minutes, I just want to throw, I hate that I have to be vague, but I have to be vague because we're coming up on the time of the year when I start to reassess everything about the channel. And so you might see a few changes on the channel. Could be, nothing major, but it could be a new welcome video here or there. It could be a new setup for the memberships. It could be the channel memberships. It could be new projects where we open up new playlists of videos that you can look forward to once or twice a month, maybe more frequently. It depends on how quickly I can get myself informed about them and get them turned around and how long, because right now I don't know how long each of these videos for this new project might be, but I'm guessing they probably won't be too long. So we're talking about maybe 5, hopefully no more than 10-minute videos that I'm thinking about trying to put together a series here in 2024. So you've got that to look forward to. And there's another series that I'm hoping to be able to bring you that is going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit more robust, because it would be more of like an interview series if we were able to work that out. And it's about some really intriguing topics, but I've got feelers out. I'm making contacts to the people that we need to talk to. And if they decide that they would like to join us and be a part of the project, then I can go forward with it. And I'm really excited about it. I hope I can make it happen for you. I'm certainly trying to do all the work behind the scenes to get ready for that. So you've got that on the table here in 2025, as well as all the stuff that we usually do, short form video, long form video. Hopefully in 2025, I'll be able to produce another video each week, maybe of a smaller version, 2 minutes to 5 minutes, maybe quick hitters about maybe news of the week or a specific topic that's come up or something like that. So there's a lot going on here on the channel. And I appreciate you guys and your support and the way that you help motivate me and help give me the opportunity to create this stuff for you. Because it's something I really enjoy. And it's the sort of thing that the more I can do, the better it's going to be for everyone, because I'm going to feel good about doing it. And then hopefully as a consumer of the content, you'll be like, yeah, that was valuable and I appreciated it. And I love this community. So I know that you guys are out there, the people who support the channel routinely. I know you're out there sharing videos and sharing links to the page and stuff like that. Every time you do that, I cannot express how much that helps. So I know that on social media, for those of you who do the socials, you know as well as I do, it doesn't take but just a minute. And every time you retweet or share on Facebook or just send it to a friend in a group chat or something like that, it just really, really does a lot to help grow the channel. And I appreciate that, because 10K is the next big number. And as soon as we can get there, I would love to be able to set up some sort of celebration. So whether it was something as simple as a giveaway, or if it were something more along the lines of maybe a gathering or something like that, for people that might be in the area, we would have to do some legwork and figure out where our watchers and listeners are and who might be willing to come out to a location if we were doing something like that. But that, if we hit numbers that are bigger as in terms of subscriptions and stuff like that moving forward, that's something that I'm considering. So if you want to be a part of help making that happen, then the best thing you can do is make sure you're subbed to the channel and share it around with your friends. So I see Tim's in the chat here telling us, they miss Joe. I spoke to Joe today. He's doing good. New year, new projects, all that kind of stuff. He's doing good. I will be sure to pass that along to him. I'm debating. I was talking to Mrs. Beast tonight, and she was telling me that in the off season, technically where we are now, she really appreciates it when we don't have evening live streams on back-to-back nights. She totally gets it during the season, and she supports that 100%. But during the season, but in the off season, she's like, I really enjoy you not having an evening something on, say, Thursdays like you do in the fall. I was telling her that I was thinking about, well, I still think I want to do some more live stuff if possible. So here's a question. If I were doing a live stream in the middle of the day, so say 11 a.m. To say 1 p.m., not that it would run for 2 hours, but is it the kind of thing where would you be able to hit and drop in for the live stream if I were doing a live stream in the middle of the day? Turn it on at work and put your earbud in and listen in or something like that. I'm just curious, putting feelers out there for ways that I might be able to do more live, freewheeling, interactive things where the entire stream might be something like this, where maybe we take calls, or maybe we just do the whole hour or 30 minutes or whatever it turns out to be of a more interactive sort of live stream. So lots of things on the table here in 2025. Definitely looking to do some new things, try some new things as we move forward through the year. So especially my channel members, if you have ideas about anything that you might want to, you might think would be a good idea, something that you might want to see, feel free to hit me up either on the socials or send me an email to my email account and let me know just what's on your mind. Because at this point, I have several ideas, but I'm also opening the doors and opening the books to take a look at some things maybe I haven't thought of yet, ways that we might be able to do more here on the channel and interact and, have a good time, even more than we already do. So we've been going for almost 15 minutes. I don't really see, a whole lot going on in the back and forth chat here going on. So it's just one of those things where we can double check, make sure that I'm not missing anything. And if we're all in good shape, we might just call it good for tonight. And I would say thanks again for all of you who were here tonight. First one back. Like I said, we were up over 80 at some point, I think, during the stream. 46 likes. So I guess I got to do a better job next time to see if I can get 80 likes. If I got 80 people, that would be beneficial. If you hadn't hit the thumbs up and you think I did a good job, I'd appreciate it if you would. It really helps push this out to other Bulldogs out there. And if I didn't do a good enough job, just know I'm going to try to do better next time. You guys take care of yourself. Stay warm this week because the winter weathers are coming. And we will talk to you again very soon. As always, go Dogs!